Hello everybody and welcome back to my frequent flyers on the channel. If you're new here, please click the subscribe button and check out my tutorial playlists. Today we continue on the VATSIM mini-series of tutorials and focus on two more elements of your flights on the VATSIM network, Pushback and Taxi. I hope you find it useful. If you do, please click the like button while you're here. Again, we're starting at Manchester Airport, scenery for which has been created by Macco Simulations. If you want to get your hands on the airport scenery, then read the description below and you'll find the link to it there. I can highly recommend it. You'll also need your charts handy, and will need to have followed the first tutorial within this VATSIM mini-series before you reach this stage. If you've missed that tutorial, then you can click the card above and head back and watch it. So, following on from that, we filed our flight plan on the VATSIM's vPilot system and obtained our IFR clearance from whichever controller is online. And remember, the VATSIM's network works on a top-down basis. So if you don't have clearance delivery online, then use ground. And if ground is not online, use the tower, and so on. As we can see, we're at stand 42 here at Manchester. Before we do anything, we need to get our ground charts ready. Be sure where you are, and if you're not using scenery like we are today, that gives you the stand numbers visually, then you'll have to work it out visually by counting stands on the charts. So you'd have to look around where you are and try and count them, match it up with the charts to find out where exactly you might be. Before you look to request pushback and start up, make sure that you've cleared all ground equipment, and make sure you're not loading any baggage, and that your jetway or air bridge has been disconnected. At this point you'll have probably come off external power and be running on the APU, which will be on and set to bleed. So let's go ahead and clear the air bridge. That door will be closed. And we can see that we've got our APU now set to bleed. Let's come off external power. Of course, you'll have had your entire flight plan all ready to go as well. You'll also have your nav lights and your logo lights on as well, which you'll have turned on from the moment you spawned on stand. Today we'll be using the call sign Wizz 275, and we're using, as you can see, the fantastic Wizz Air livery from flightsim.to, which you guys can download for free. Note that if you're using Unicom on VATSIM, if there's nobody online controller wise, you do not need to call it for clearance, but you should announce that you're going to push and start from your gate. And when you taxi, ideally you should also announce the taxi route that you intend to use and the hold point that you will use at the runway 2, so that everybody else around you on the ground and in the air that's on their way in can understand what your intentions are and where you might be within the airport. If you've obtained clearance via clearance delivery, you'll need to tell them that you're fully ready, and on their clearance delivery frequency, that can just be a simple message such as Manchester delivery Wizz 275 fully ready, and they will reply to you with a message similar to Wizz 275 Manchester delivery roger, contact ground on 121.850, goodbye, or whatever the next frequency will be. So read that back to them. Contact ground 121.850, thank you, good day, Wizz 275, and then you switch to the frequency given to you in your comms box. And you'll probably figure, well, you will find this and you'll be able to preempt it by checking who is online on vPilot. So you can go down the list of online controllers and you'll see if there's a Manchester Tower or Manchester Ground on, etc. So let's have a quick look at the charts. Of course, as we usually do, we're using Chart Fox as it's free, but I've also included the Jefferson charts for Manchester as well, and we'll be able to see that they're both very different visually. On Chart Fox, you'll want to go to the Taxi tab, and I like to open up the Aerodrome chart, into its separate tab, again by clicking this sourced from area on the screen. But also you'll need your parking docking chart as well, just to help. And this is especially useful if you can't work out where you are, if the scenery doesn't show you your stand number. And we know that we are at stand 42, which is here on Pier A at Terminal 3 at Manchester. On this ground chart, if we zoom in, we can match the two up and realise that within Terminal 3 we can find Terminal 3, Pier Alpha, and our stand 42 is here somewhere. So we know that we're going to push back and probably be facing south. Have your pen and paper ready to write down taxi instructions on it. You can roughly guess what your pushback options might be from your position and from looking at the charts. This is the Jefferson charts, and as you can see they are visually different. Again though, it labels Terminal 3 and it labels Pier Alpha, so we know that stand 42 is around where that red circle is that I've just drawn. And when we push back, we can see that we'll be pushing back onto taxiway Juliet Foxtrot. And if we look on this map, we can see a taxiway Juliet Foxtrot there. Same with the ground charts. The ground charts are actually a little bit clearer for taxiing, so we can see stand Juliet Foxtrot. And that arrow is going to be roughly the position of where our nose is going to face when we push back. You could also guess from here what your taxi route is likely to be. So we could probably guess here that we're going to taxi on taxiway Juliet Foxtrot, and again we can compare with this line here down to Kilo, continue on Kilo to Juliet, and we might be told to hold at Mike 1 for runway 23 right, as that's the active runway today. You can see some hotspot areas, and they're the red boxes on the charts, and always useful to read if that might be something you're given. So if you're told to taxi to Juliet 1, then it's a hotspot, and you can see there that it faces the 23 right approach and located only 200 metres from the centre line. So you can preempt roughly what your taxi instructions might be if you know what runway you're going to be on. If, for example, we're going to be using 23 left today, then we might be told to taxi on Juliet Foxtrot, Kilo, and hold short Papa 1, because it's a hold point to cross what is a active runway most likely. So we'll call that back as hold at Papa 1. When we get to Papa 1, we'll have to contact Tower for permission to cross, and they would tell us the section that they're responsible with around the runway. So it would be cross runway 23 right via Papa 1. When vacated, contact ground 121.850, something like that. So again, you read back all the instructions you're given, and then you contact ground again, and they might tell you that from Delta Zulu 1, taxi to hold point Uniform 1, which is down there, for runway 23 left via Victor. So lots to take in. That's why I like to recommend using small airports if it's your first time on VATSIM, and if it's your first time getting used to using the charts as well, then have a good look at them and try and get as familiar as you can with them offline before you head on to the network. Manchester specifically is quite a busy one. All of these little boxes here, it says like Delta 1, Bravo 3, Bravo 4, Bravo 5, Lima 1, Delta 3 and so on. They're all hold points, so when it's particularly busy you might be told to just taxi to one of those. So for example, if you're up here, you might be told to taxi November Charlie, Echo, hold Delta 3, and you'll have to stop at this line. and then just wait.
Traffic Runner 2084, we just pushed on to taxiway Golf, we're taxiing to holding point Alpha Golf 1 for runway 05 left.
And we'll have to wait there for further instructions. But we can roughly work out and predict, knowing what the active runway is going to be, we can predict what taxiway we might have to follow. As always, just have your pen and paper ready to record all of that down. All your taxi instructions and things like that, so that you don't have to remember as much. So we're at stand 42 and we're ready to go. We've cleared that ground equipment from around us, and we now need to turn on our beacon, or our anti-collision light, because we're going to push back, so that others know that we're preparing to move. Now, I should probably note that if you're going to request pushback, make sure you've got everything ready to go. So when you're given your pushback instructions, you can initiate that pushback immediately, so that the controllers aren't waiting forever for you to push back, especially if it's busy. It can cause sort of unnecessary delay. But we know we're going to push back and probably be told to face south. But if they tell us to face north, then we'll do that. And again, we just read it back. So we would call up on Manchester ground. Manchester ground, good morning. Wiz 275 as stand 42, with information, whatever that might be. So your ATIS information letter, information PAPA, for example. So Manchester ground, good morning. Wiz 275 with information PAPA, stand 42, request push and start. And they will reply with Wiz 275, Manchester ground, hello. From stand 42, push start approved, facing south. And we would then read it back. Push start approved, face south for Wiz 275. And at that point,
cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight
we're
ready.
going.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes released.
Pushing back.
Now you might be told to push back, not push back, but on a particularly busy day, they might just give you approval at some airports to start your engines on the stand. Now, for systems like Pushback Express, that causes us problems, because if we've got the engine started, it will not let us push back the aircraft. So there's lots of things like that we need to consider. If they tell you to do that and you're not able to, then just say unable. Unable to start until after pushback has started, or something real brief for them. If we're at the next stand along, if we're at stand 41 for example, we may be told straight push, in which case we push back here on this line and then we follow and we position the aircraft on this centre yellow line here. So it's just a straight back push, and because we've got clearance to start the engines, we can go ahead and start them up. Try and push back as neatly as you can. So in this instance we may have been told to push back straight. So if we do, you want to try and position your nose on the yellow line at all times, but if it was a straight pushback, to give you an example of it, then we would position the aircraft onto that yellow line that we can see that we're backing into now. Once we're happy with that position, we can go ahead and slow the tug down and stop our pushback. There we go.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar
Start
is
engine
disconnected
2.
and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the left side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
So now we're just waiting for our engines to start up and be ready to go.
Traffic Ryanair 2084, departing runway 05 left, Gatwick 10 departure.
So from Juliet Foxtrot, if runway 23 right was the active runway today, we would, at this point, now all our engines are stable and we're ready to move, we would call back with, quite simply, Manchester Ground, Wizz 275, request taxi, or ready for taxi, whichever you sort of prefer. And we need our pen and paper ready, because we will be told our instructions, and it will be something along the lines of what we saw and probably guessed on the charts. And in this instance, it will be Wizz 275 Manchester Ground, taxi to runway 23 right, hold point Mike 1 via Juliet Foxtrot, Kilo and Juliet. We would read that back as taxi to hold and Mike 1, runway 23 right via Juliet Foxtrot, Kilo, Juliet, Wizz 275. And we know then from our charts that that is going to be our taxi route. So we go ahead and set the aircraft up for departure with the takeoff checklists, and so we make sure our flaps are set in the correct position for whatever departure we require. We need to make sure that as we start moving, that taxi light is on, and we can then obviously turn off our APU, and if we've got cross bleed and things on, we can turn that off as well. And we make sure we do our best to taxi with our nose wheel on that yellow line. If we're using the Luke Air tool or any add-ons like this, then obviously we need to try and time that safety demonstration in accordance with the distance of our taxi. So we may have already started that knowing it's a very short taxi distance to the runway. And we'll go ahead and just configure the aircraft as required. So we're armed speed brakes and all that sort of stuff. Config test, and eventually we'll do the cabin crew all call. And as we're taxiing on the ground, we're looking for these signs to tell us where we are, all the yellow boards, taxi markers and things like that. And we're following this yellow line. You see there that we're, if we turn left, we're going to head on to Juliet, and that's where we want to go. So down we go. And if you're using the A32NX, then you can taxi on idle, as we are doing. Now, if there's Manchester Ground online, or London Centre, or anyone else that's dealing with departures at the airport, around this section here at this airport, you might be told to contact them. So around about here, if there was Ground and Tower online, Manchester Ground would call you up. Wizz 275, contact Manchester Tower 118.63 or 119.405, or whatever that frequency will be, and we just read it back to them. Contact Manchester Tower 119.405. Thank you, goodbye. Wizz 275. And then we make our way to the hold point. So we would switch over to the correct frequency, whatever that would be, for the next controller that's going to deal with our takeoff instructions. And as we get nearer to this hold point, if we are ready for departure and we're at the very front of the queue, then we could call up here Manchester Tower, Wizz 275, good morning, holding at Mike 1, ready for departure. And then they would give you all your instructions for your departure. If you get to here and it's busy, then obviously you can see if there's aircraft on finals. You just taxi to the hold point and wait. If you're third in the queue or second in the queue and it's a busy day, you could call up Manchester Tower, Wiz 275 at Mike 1 in sequence number 2, ready for departure. And that will tell them that you're second in the queue at this hold point, waiting to go. And the departure stuff is going to be covered on another video. If you've enjoyed the video and you've found it useful, please click the like button, and if you're new to the channel, then please subscribe as well, and join us as a frequent flyer. If you're based in another region and you know that the procedures are slightly different, as they can be, then let me know what the differences might be in the comments below, and of course let me know how you get on in the comments as well. Hopefully you have a great experience on the VATSIM network. It is immersive and enjoyable, and it brings a bit more of a heightened experience into Microsoft Flight Simulator. Be sure to check out the next tutorials within this VATSIM mini-series, and join us on Discord. If you have any content suggestions, then let me know on there, and I'll do my best to make them work. Thank you all for watching, and see you soon for another live stream.